Big change for Coeur d'Alene and Rathdrum police chiefs. Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris took away their county-wide authority this week. Now, I spoke with both police chiefs. That was a story that I worked on this week, but I want to use our opportunity here on KREM 2 Plus to spend a little more time explaining what this means for those communities and share a little bit more of my conversation with those police chiefs. So, our media partners at the Coeur d'Alene Press obtained public records that say this week, Sheriff Norris revoked the special deputy status for Coeur d'Alene Police Chief Lee White, and it's in Coeur d'Alene as well, Captain Dave Hagar and the Rathdrum Police Chief Dan Haley. Now, another way to look at this is the sheriff banned them from acting outside their city limits. Now, it's not every day we hear about special deputy privileges. What does that mean? So let's break it down. In Idaho, city police can normally only act within their own city limits. That is, unless it's an emergency or another agency calls them in, right? But sheriffs can grant special deputy status, and that status gives those officers county-wide authority. In this case, Kootenai County-wide authority. Now, without that status, chiefs like White and Haley can't operate outside their jurisdiction the way that they used to. So as I mentioned, I talked to Chief Lee White off camera at the Coeur d'Alene Police Department this week. And, he told me SWAT, as far as impacts go, he believes SWAT will likely be the biggest impact. He told me Coeur d'Alene officers make up about 2/3 of the Kootenai County Joint Agency SWAT team. And White says this year, just for some additional context, this year that SWAT team has responded to about 14 calls, which he says is about average year to year. Now, even though Chief White's status has changed, so his powers county-wide have been revoked, both city and county SWAT members will still jointly respond to calls. But White says the sheriff's office will have complete control over individual city officers on what they do without any oversight from Coeur d'Alene PD leadership. When I talked to him on the phone later, because this is a very complex issue to kind of work through here, he explained that he's concerned about that component because it doesn't support the idea that Coeur d'Alene police would have zero ability to intervene or prevent what he says might be inappropriate actions on a SWAT call. Now, essentially, he's saying the city would not be allowed to provide leadership, guidance, or input on how city officers are used. Now, the chief himself, he told me he's got several years of SWAT experience prior to joining the Coeur d'Alene Police Department and now over his 30-plus years on the department. And he says that is experience that he leans on when he does supervise those SWAT calls from that the agency responds to. And now let's talk about the staffing and leadership gap that is now happening here. Chief White says the current SWAT team leader is from Coeur d'Alene Police Department is retiring in January. And the chief says there is currently no trained replacement with special deputy status to fill that gap. And he notes that Captain Dave Hagar, whose special deputy status is also being revoked by the sheriff, he has SWAT experience and is also, because of losing that status, being barred from providing that input. Now, the chief says the situation would be like, he gave this example, it'd be like the chief commandeering the Spokane City SWAT, right? Totally separate jurisdictions, but Spokane City would have zero input. In that case, even the chief said Spokane would lose its mind, right? That's what the chief is saying is happening right now with Kootenai County's joint SWAT. Now, it's clear that Chief White is strongly against this new arrangement now that he no longer has his special deputy powers. Now, even viewing this as a significant risk to their departmental control and safety. That said, though, Chief White says Coeur d'Alene residents won't notice a difference. Okay, not a huge difference to Coeur d'Alene residents, okay? But he does believe county residents might. I did ask the sheriff's office to give context to that. We'll get into that later. At this point, they're not saying much about the situation. So anyway, so that is the Coeur d'Alene City Police Department's perspective on the impacts of losing this county-wide policing power. Now, I also spoke with Rathdrum Police Chief Dan Haley on Zoom, and he had some examples of what this all means for him day to day. So take a listen to this. Here's what he told me his reaction was initially to losing his privilege, his special deputy privilege. Take a listen.
I was surprised. There's always that question that comes up as to why it occurred. And then the next reaction was, is it just myself or is it the rest of my officers within the Rathdrum Police Department? So that was my initial reactions to it.
What were you able to get answers to?
I was able to find out that it was just my status that was revoked, that the rest of the Rathdrum police officers' status is maintained. And so there was no change in their status, which ultimately is one of the biggest things that I cared about at that moment.
So the big headline for the Rathdrum community, it is that you won't see any big changes. Public safety in Rathdrum, according to Chief Haley, is Rathdrum will remain business as usual as in regard to public safety. Now, Chief Haley says only his special status was revoked within Rathdrum's police department, which again means he specifically can no longer operate county-wide, just within Rathdrum's boundaries. But he is relieved, though, that most of his officers can still operate countywide. He breaks down what this all means when I asked him, what does it mean day-to-day operations-wise? Take a listen.
Citizens of Rathdrum won't see a change in any service from myself or any of the officers within. And so we're still committed to serving them day to day, and this has no bearing on that whatsoever. My police powers maintain the same within the city limits of Rathdrum. The difference does change to those that are just outside of our city limits, whether they are traveling on the roadway or just live right outside of city limits. One of the easiest ways to explain the change is I see a traffic infraction at one of the lights on Highway 41 going to Post Falls. Once when I'm outside of the city limits, I am no longer able to stop that person. So they run a red light. I don't have police powers to make a traffic stop. If I see a misdemeanor occurring in front of me, so somebody on the side of the road punches another person, that's a misdemeanor battery. I do not have police powers to intervene as a police officer. I still have the ability to intervene as a private citizen and would take appropriate action. If it is a felony crime, then I'm still able to respond as a peace officer. No special deputy status is needed.
So Chief Haley added that Rathdrum won't see impacts similar to Coeur d'Alene when we're talking about the SWAT impacts. That's because Rathdrum is not part of the county's joint agency SWAT. Instead, Rathdrum actually has a special response team that it partners with Post Falls PD. Still, Haley hopes the sheriff will reconsider and reinstate the special deputy status. Take a listen.
I would like to continue to be able to be a force multiplier for the residents even outside of Rathdrum. I live and work in Kootenai County, and so I care about what occurs within that jurisdiction. And so being able to do those public safety functions on my way to and from meetings, to and from home, all of those types of things, I would like to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, my day-to-day, my focus is Rathdrum. And so the others, that's ancillary, but it does make it easier in order to assist with public safety and be a force multiplier in the county.
I thought that was interesting when he brought up, I live in Kootenai County. I work in Kootenai County. I have an invested interest in what happens in that community. I live within the county community, and it's important to me to provide that element of safety when I'm even outside of the city of Rathdrum. So I thought that was an interesting take for his hope for the future when it comes to Sheriff Norris reconsidering revoking those privileges. Now, let's get to the big question in all of this. Why did Sheriff Norris revoke this special status of these police chiefs? We don't know. I reached out to the sheriff's office to find out. When I was working on this story this week, the public information officer there told me Sheriff Norris will not be commenting on this issue. Now, for the sake of transparency, I hope he considers reconsiders that decision. I hope he'll share his thought process behind this. Now, I did request an interview with the sheriff yesterday. I sent another request today, and I hope that when the dust settles, I think maybe that's a strategy for him there. I hope that when this dust settles, he may be more open to discussing his decision. It's a hot topic right now. A lot of people are talking about it. I hope that he'll come forward and share what he thinks the impacts might be, and if he's fully considered the impacts that the Rathdrum and Coeur d'Alene police chiefs believe are going to come through as a result of this decision. Now, that said, Chief White of Coeur d'Alene, he gave me his take on why he thinks the sheriff did this, and he believes it's because the sheriff is unhappy about the investigation into his involvement in the February 22nd town hall incident. Okay. To remind you, during that town hall, a private security, few of those private security officers forcibly removed a woman after repeatedly interrupting speakers during that event. Now, authorities said the guards were acting at the discretion of Sheriff Bob Norris, and we've been covering this for the past several months, right? Now, here is cell phone video that we got from that incident, just to give you a flashback visually of the incident we're talking about here.
You out now! You out now! Let's go!
Now, prosecutors later charged several security... Oh, still going there. Prosecutors later charged several security personnel, but last week those charges were dropped with the case dismissed by a judge. Now, we also learned in November the Idaho Attorney General's office decided not to charge Sheriff Norris, saying that he was within his rights to have the woman and 3 others removed from the event. So there you have it. Again, we're hoping to hear more. I am going to keep reaching out. I hope we'll hear more from the sheriff on this decision. It's the first time in my 10 years in the Spokane market that such powers have been revoked. I think our law enforcement, anytime we've gone out to cover major incidents, the teamwork that goes between agencies is very critical. We saw that with the Canfield Mountain ambush, right? In those are the exceptions, though, where it's an emergency situation and they're relying on one another and they can step in even if it's outside of their jurisdiction because they are calling for that emergency help. But in the event of, just as Chief Haley had mentioned, if I see a traffic crime, that sort of thing, if someone runs a red light, well, if it's outside of Rathdrum, I can't do anything to try and make the community a little safer. If someone's speeding or on a chase, I can't follow that. Now, as this continues to fold, we're going to keep asking questions and bringing you verified information from all sides. If the sheriff does decide to speak publicly, you'll hear it right here. Anyway, thank you for spending this deeper look time with me here on KREM 2+.